65,000 years ago, while the rest of humanity was still huddled in caves in Africa and Europe, a group of people crossed open ocean on purpose. They discovered an entirely different world, a supercontinent teeming with monsters unlike anything human eyes had ever seen before. Giant wombats the size of cars, kangaroos 3 meters tall, creatures that had never evolved to fear humans because humans had never existed there. And those people didn't just survive. They built a civilization that outlasted every empire in human history. The Romans, the Egyptians, the Mesopotamians, combined 3 times over. You have never heard this story properly told. And there's a very specific reason for that. Here is what the textbooks got catastrophically wrong. For most of the 20th century, archaeologists described the first Australians as simple nomads, wanderers, people without cities or writing or real civilization. That passive, dismissive language got repeated so many times it hardened into fact. But in the last 2 decades, that story has been completely demolished, piece by piece, site by site, discovery by discovery, satellite imaging, underwater archaeology, artificial intelligence analysis, and a fundamental shift toward listening to Aboriginal elders changed everything we thought we knew. What is replacing the old story is almost impossible to believe. We are not talking about a civilization that built pyramids or giant stone temples. We are talking about something harder to achieve and far more rare. A civilization that never collapsed, not once in over 60,000 years. One that read the stars, engineered entire landscapes with fire, and encoded the memory of ancient floods into songs still sung today. They passed all of it down, unbroken, for 2,000 generations. Stay with me, because the discoveries that crack this open are genuinely extraordinary. Picture the world 65,000 years ago. Sea levels are dramatically lower. What we now call Southeast Asia and Australia jut further into the ocean. But between them, there is still a gap, a minimum of 70 to 100 kilometers of open, unpredictable ocean with no visible land on the other side. Every expert model agrees. Crossing it was not an accident. This was planned, organized. These people built watercraft and read ocean currents. They prepared deliberately for a journey into the complete unknown. Recent genetic studies, including a major 2025 analysis published in Science Advances, support arrival around 60,000 years ago via at least 2 distinct migration routes. When they arrived, they stepped onto Sahul, a lost supercontinent that no longer exists anywhere on any modern map. Australia, Tasmania, and New Guinea were fused into one massive landmass, and it was absolutely alive. Forests, lakes, rivers, and megafauna unlike anything else on Earth. The Diprotodon, a wombat-like creature weighing over 2 tons, roamed these lands freely. The Procoptodon was a kangaroo that stood eye to eye with a modern human, giant goannas, marsupial lions, thunderbirds. These people had never seen anything like it, and somehow, within a few thousand years, they had spread everywhere. They reached every corner of this continent, including the places that scientists thought were completely and utterly unsurvivable. Here is where the story gets genuinely strange. For decades, archaeologists assumed the deep interior was simply too brutal for early humans, the scorching, waterless heart of Australia. Maybe occupied later, once people had more sophisticated tools. Then, in 2016, a team following leads from an Aboriginal elder excavated a rock shelter in the Flinders Ranges of South Australia. That elder's family had known about this site for generations. The site was called Warratyi, and what they found inside changed everything. Under meters of sediment, archaeologists uncovered thousands of artifacts, stone tools, ochre used for art and ritual, the bones of Megafauna, cut and carefully processed. And the dates came back at 49,000 to 50,000 years old. Deep in what is now one of Earth's harshest deserts, humans were living here, hunting here, creating here, and thriving here earlier than almost anyone in the scientific world had ever believed possible. But Warratyi was not just ancient, It was sophisticated. The tools included hafted implements, blades attached to handles, considered far too advanced for that period by old models. It forced a complete reassessment of everything. These were not people barely scraping by. They were absolute masters of this brutal environment. And here is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. If one elder's knowledge revealed a site this significant, what else is still out there, known to communities for generations, undocumented in Western science, waiting in the red dust for someone to finally ask the right questions? In 2020 and 2021, archaeologists made a discovery off the coast of Western Australia that stopped the entire field cold. It was found underwater, on what is now the seafloor of the Pilbara coast as part of the Deep History of Sea Country project. Stone tools, artifacts, clear evidence of human occupation from a time when that seabed was dry land. The world had literally swallowed their history whole. Rising seas had buried the oldest chapters of this civilization beneath the ocean. And here is what makes it extraordinary. Aboriginal oral traditions had always described exactly this: stories of lands that were flooded, coastlines that disappeared beneath the sea. Linguists and geologists cross-referenced dozens of these stories with hard geological data and found something remarkable. Some appear to encode accurate memories of sea level rise events from over 7,000 years ago, preserved not in writing, not in stone, but in human memory passed from grandparent to grandchild for hundreds of generations. Think about what that truly means. An unbroken oral tradition kept alive through story alone, preserving geological truth across hundreds of human lifetimes. Then there are the songlines. Across the entire continent, Aboriginal peoples maintain a network of invisible routes that crisscross all of Australia. These routes are encoded not in maps or written documents, but in songs. Each song describes the landscape, the water sources, the sacred sites along a specific path. Sing the song correctly, and you can navigate hundreds of kilometers of open desert without a compass, a map, or any modern technology whatsoever. Researchers studying the Seven Sisters songline, connected to the Pleiades star cluster, found versions of it distributed across the entire continent. Many consider it one of the oldest continuously told narratives in human history. This is what a civilization looks like when it is built not for power, not for conquest, but for forever. So why does this matter beyond history? Because right now we are living through a climate crisis. And the people of Sahul lived through something comparable, multiple times. Ice ages came and went. The continent dried out dramatically. Coastlines completely vanished beneath rising seas. They weathered versions of every scenario we are now afraid of. Their most powerful tool was fire. Fire stick farming was not random destruction. It was a land management system refined and perfected over tens of thousands of years. Controlled, precise burns promoted new plant growth, created productive hunting grounds, and prevented catastrophic wildfires by carefully clearing accumulated fuel loads from the landscape. When European settlers arrived and stopped these burns, the landscape became dangerously overgrown almost immediately. The consequences were visible and severe within just a few generations. Today, many Australian ecologists argue that reintegrating traditional burning practices is one of the most powerful environmental management tools currently available to modern land managers. 60,000 years of ecological knowledge encoded in living culture, and it almost got permanently erased within just 2 centuries of colonial contact. The lost civilization of Australia was never really lost. It was here the entire time, in the red dust, and the rock art, and the ancient songs, in the stories that remembered floods before science could prove those floods ever happened. What was lost was simply our willingness to look and listen. New excavations are opening every year. Underwater archaeology off the northwest coast is just getting started. Artificial intelligence analysis of satellite imagery is flagging new sites every month. And a growing number of researchers are doing what should have happened a century ago. sitting with elders, asking respectful questions, and actually listening carefully to the answers. The full picture is not yet complete. But what we already know rewrites the human story entirely. This was not a dead-end branch of humanity. This was the longest unbroken experiment in human civilization ever conducted on this planet, running continuously for over 60,000 years, and it worked. If that genuinely moved something in you, share this video with one person who loves history. This story deserves to be heard by far more people. The underwater sites off the Pilbara coast are about to receive their first serious excavation campaigns. When those results arrive, this entire timeline may shift dramatically. That video is coming. Subscribe now so you do not miss it when it drops. The Outback still holds secrets. We're just getting started.